and welcome to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. This is a production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, executive producer. My name is Pat Ford. I currently serve as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island, and I'm proud to say I'm the chair for the Joe Jorgensen presidential campaign for, again, the great state of Rhode Island. We share a few purposes for this show. We want to give the libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down-ballot candidates. I will say to you this: the future is now. For those of us who might have questioned the presence of that quote-unquote bench that we've spoken of for so many years in the Libertarian Party, it is loud, it is driven, and is spread equally throughout the country. We've had candidates on from, well, Maine to Hawaii, and we'll continue to do this show up until the November 3rd election. We look to each candidate and we challenge them to incorporate what I call lunch pail issues. Remember Bill Clinton? It's the economy, stupid. We want to take issues that affect every American, whether our candidates be running for school board, mass transportation boards, state house representatives, senate representatives, in some cases, governors, congressmen, and senators. And we want to see them incorporate those issues and look at them through a libertarian perspective. Equally important, we preach this every week. We wanted to create a kinship, a fellowship, if you will, of affiliates around the nation so that we understand that, for example, in tonight's case, two great candidates running for positions in both South Dakota and Illinois are as important to the future of the Libertarian Party and the libertarian philosophy to folks in Maine, to folks in Rhode Island, to folks in Florida, to folks in California. It's critical that we take this opportunity where we have an outstanding presidential and vice presidential candidate preaching, if you will, the libertarian philosophy across the nation, that we use this to showcase outstanding, quote unquote, down ballot candidates. Joining us right now for the first time on our show is Adam Jewell. He is a candidate for the South Dakota State Senate District 5, or as we like to say on the show, the Big District 5. Adam, welcome to An Hour with the Candidates. How are you this evening?
I'm doing good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I've been dying to have somebody on from South Dakota. You got all sorts of stuff happening there. You've got Sturgis. You got, I don't know, there's some new president that's going to get put up on some mountain you got going on there.
I'd rather he wasn't.
Right. But most importantly, you've got that one governor in America who looked the federal government square in the eye and said, our people don't need no stinking money. Send that money home. We'll have none of that. And who's claiming to have this outstanding economy. So I want to learn more about South Dakota, and what better way than someone who is running for state senate. Let's start off at the beginning. We always ask this of every candidate, but I think it's really yielded some interesting stories. What was your libertarian moment, if you will, Adam? What was that moment in your life where that light went on over your head and you said, you know what, I'm going to take the easy path out. I'm going to follow a libertarian philosophy that calls for self-ownership. And, you know, I'm going to go for that third party role. What was that moment in your life?
I think it was more so around 2012, like during the 2012 election, and that's kind of when social media was taking like a really big impact on the election. And I was so tired on my, my Facebook of, at that time it was Romney and Obama that were going back and forth. And like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, this guy makes a few good points and this guy makes a few good points. But I'm like, neither one of them are making good enough points for me to, like, I'm not going to vote for either one of them. I'm not, going to support either one of them. And during that time, I had no idea really about much third party or any third party really. So, I mean, I sat out the election and I didn't vote. And it wasn't until probably 2013 that I was introduced to the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian philosophy, and it just made a lot of sense to me. I mean, yeah, you'll always find a few small things that you're, maybe disagree with, but I agreed with like 90% of it, whereas before I maybe agreed with 20-30% of what Republicans said or what the Democrats said, and then it was just, I got behind a lot of what they were saying. And then come 2016, I really got excited about it. I got excited about Gary Johnson. I got excited about the possibility of just starting to change the political climate. And but with that comes the challenges as well, where once you start telling people that you're a libertarian, you start dealing with the adversity of people telling you that third parties are wasted votes, and that now is not the time to be trying to vote for a third party candidate. So, but it just made sense to me. A lot of it it tuned into who I was and what I believed in. And I think you can have your cake and eat it too with the Libertarian Party.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do when you're not political? Your family, your job. Give us a sense of yourself.
So, personal life, I got married back in 2010. My wife is actually a school teacher. So education's really important to me, because it has to be, otherwise I'll get in trouble. I got two beautiful daughters. One just turned 7 this week. The other one is 4, Adrian and Amelia. And then work-wise, I work at a local steel factory here in town. I've held several positions within that company over the past 10 years. And I'm actually a public relations manager and a social media manager for a business startup with my buddy. He has a business called Atlanta Sea Colony. So I help him with his social media and reach out to possible investors and all that stuff. So, and that's kind of me in a nutshell. That, and
Excellent.
Before the show, we talked about how I'm 50% Cincinnati Bengals fan and 50% Minnesota Vikings fan. So I'm used to disappointment a lot of times.
Well, as I was about to ask you, I'm the guy who works across the street from some team called the Patriots, and I'm a New York Football Giants fan. So you know what? There's diversity within this party. Part of our show here is to paint a picture of the district, if you will, that you're looking to represent. Tell what's the economy, what's the diversity, what's the business climate, what's the political climate. Give us kind of an overview, a little mini infomercial about who you're running to represent.
I like how you got the infographic up here, because it is helpful. I'm lucky with District 5 in South Dakota, because District 5 is essentially Watertown. That's where I was born and raised. So the people that I represent, we have a lot of large employers, large manufacturers here. We have, I think we're the, last time I checked, the 6th largest city in South Dakota. So we do have a lot of different types of economic outlets. We have different businesses, different types of people here. So with it, I don't know if you consider 20,000 people to be a big city. That's big for us here in South Dakota, but you do start to get a little bit of the diversity amongst people, whether it's politics, religion, race, whatever it may be. So, we do have a miniature, I guess, mix of things that are going on in Watertown. We say District 5, but District 5 is Watertown, South Dakota.
So what are the biggest challenges that folks, let's just say pre-COVID for a few minutes, what are the biggest challenges folks are facing in Watertown? If I'm looking at the South Dakota Economic Development website, if you will, and if I were to read this website and take it one spiritually at its message, it would appear that, well, Watertown, South Dakota, and South Dakota in general is heaven on earth. Is it? Are things that good?
I mean, it's not local politics. It's a very good city. I've had very few issues, living here. But obviously I'm not running for city council or mayor or anything like that. So, but the big thing that when you get to larger politics, whether it's state politics or national whatever it may be, is that's when you start running into the party line, and like I said earlier, you have that issue of people will always believe that it's been Democrat or Republican, and there's probably no redder state in the United States than South Dakota. But it's my personal belief that most South Dakotans are probably libertarian at heart, where they want to be fiscally conservative and they don't have problems with a lot of social issues. But with South Dakota, the biggest thing anybody or that we're very proud of is our gun rights. And South Dakota has amazing gun laws where we don't have a lot of restrictions. Really, the only restrictions that we face are the ones that have been mandated at the federal level. So, I mean, we have very little gun violence or gun crime here. So with gun rights being so important to people will always vote Republican because they don't think that anything else is going to help them protect their guns, really. But there's people that want to protect their guns and don't have problems with cannabis laws. They don't have problems with hemp manufacturing. They don't have problems with some of the social issues like gay marriage or LGBT issues. They don't have problems with that stuff. But if they want to care about that stuff, more times than not, they have to start looking at the Democratic option, or at least they feel like they have to. Whereas, if we can start promoting the libertarian philosophy and get that notion out of people's heads that voting for a libertarian is a wasted vote, once again, this is one of those situations where I feel like you can have your cake and eat it too. It's like, we can be socially progressive. We can be the leaders in our state, and be the leaders in the country in a lot of things, and also protect our gun laws. It goes back to that meme or that joke that, about libertarians wanting gay married couples to be able to protect their pot plants with their guns or their AR-15. So, I mean, I think if you were to propose that to a lot of people, they'd be fine with that. But it's all about introducing the libertarian philosophy to people.
What are the hot button issues for folks in South Dakota right now?
Really, right now, it's still all about the coronavirus. And it's kind of sad that that's the main thing, because it's such a touchy subject, because you have people on both sides of the spectrum of whether it's, a super serious issue and we have to take every single precaution and the government needs to step in, or it's the opposite. And like you mentioned earlier, South Dakota, we've done a lot better than most states. And even though there's a lot of things, like a lot of things I disagree with Governor Nome on, I do agree with her stance on not shutting the state down, because we have several counties across across South Dakota that have had less than 5 cases, less than 10 cases, whatever. So having a government mandate shutdown would have just been ridiculous, and it would have hurt our economy. And we have done a lot better. Yeah, we still took a hit, but really it kind of brings a lot of other issues to the surface on things like health freedom and how we want to take care of our health. We don't have mandates, and we don't have statewide mask mandates, and we fight tooth and nail on that. And that's one thing I've stood firmly on, is that any sort of government mandated health issue I'm against, because nobody knows how to protect yourself, your family, more than you and the relationship with your doctor does. I don't need politicians telling me what's best for me and what's best for my family. So having said that, I'm also I'm all about companies' property rights. If the Menards here in town, it's a hardware store, ask people to wear masks, I'm going to respect that. They're a private business that wants to protect, run their business how they see fit. I'm going to wear a mask into their store. I'm not going to throw a fit about it. But I have a problem with if I'm walking down the street and no one's around me for half a mile because it's South Dakota, then I'm not going to be just wearing a mask, and I don't want to have to face the possibility of paying a fine or getting locked up, whatever it is.
It's interesting because one of the things that I love about doing this show is I'm a newspaper junkie. So I've actually spent quality time reading the Watertown Public Opinion. If folks aren't familiar with it, I commend it to your attention. It's at the publicopinion.com. And it is clearly has the pulse of the greater Watertown and Sioux Falls, South Dakota public, if you will. It's interesting because an article just came out. You may not have a chance to see it in the last hour or so. Literally, that South Dakota confirms 323 new cases of the coronavirus, which, holy cow, that seems like that's steep considering the size, the population of your state. Tell us about your district. How many people are in it? What are the mechanics of actually running an election during COVID in a part of the country which is not exactly compressed or high population density to begin with? How are you doing this?
With what I plan on doing and getting started with it really soon is, I'm going to print out some, door hangers and stuff like that and be able to go pass those out. And I have people that are willing to help me with that. I'm going to rely heavily on social media presence just because who isn't really on Facebook or, any form of social media right now, to be able to get my word out, get my message out, but also be able to get involved, for those people that don't use it, go door to door and, at least give them my information on who I am, what I'm about. And just, you have to respect people's beliefs when it comes to like I said, the coronavirus. And right here so our county, not District 5, but our county has I want to say it's 70, 80 active cases right now. So, there's probably a lot of people quarantining in their houses, and, I'm not all about knocking on doors and telling them to come meet me, shake their hand, and then I'm going around doing it to everybody else too. So, you got to be respectful in that sense. But like I said, I'm really going to rely on social media and just, I have a pretty good support cast around here that are helping me spread the word. I'm luckier than a lot of candidates are, where my district is just my city. There's plenty of other libertarian candidates here in South Dakota where their district covers multiple towns, multiple cities that they have to go reach out to. So, that is an advantage for me. But it'll also be good for me to, actually go do some walking around, because I'm kind of a big boy, so I need to get the exercise, and I'll do it while it's warm as opposed to when the winter hits here pretty soon.
There you go. So let's talk about local government. I'm reading there's a development company accredited by International Council, and they're talking about the Watertown Development Company, one of only 68 international economic development organizations and only one in South Dakota accredited by the IEDC as an accredited economic development organization. What are some of the things that they're doing locally to build up an economy? Is it are there tax breaks? Are there low interest loans? How involved is government, if you will, in the free market and in attracting businesses to South Dakota?
One of the advantages we have is that we don't have high taxes when it comes for businesses. We are an attractive state for that. So it's one of those things where we need to get more businesses to come here. And one of my big things that I've been focused on is with the hemp industry. A good portion of South Dakota's economy is agriculture. So, and we just recently passed certain legislation to allow hemp, even though when our governor was a representative, she wanted to pass it nationally, but then when it came to South Dakota, she was against it for a while. I don't understand why, but also with that now that it has passed, now they want to have all these regulations on it. And to me, we need to get the regulations out of it. There's no reason that we need to have a regulation on the hemp industry. So kind of stemming off of that, we need to focus on other regulations we have, such as, silly licensing. If you don't need to go through license and get permits and all that, just say to do something like cutting hair. To me, that doesn't make sense that you'd have to pay the state to do that, and that you'd have to get visits from health inspectors and all that just to cut hair. Let the free market, let your customers determine how good you are at your job, not them. If you go to a barber and they butcher your hair or cut you somehow, chances are you're not going to go there again, and you're not going to have a very good review for them. You don't need the government to step in and tell you that, oh, that person's not a good person to do this, or this one is a good person. Let the people decide, and people are, responsible. They know what they're doing. Recently, we had the issue with when COVID did hit, our largest pork producer, they had to shut down because they did not handle COVID well at all. And that was down there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it shut down that, and it caused a lot of the people that had pigs to not be able to handle what to do with their livestock. So, but once again, you have to go through all the licensing, the permits. You have to get all this government approval to, like, say you want to sell or butcher your own pigs, cows, whatever it is. And like the prices on pork and beef were just through the roof. It was ridiculous because there was very few people that were open allowing to do it. So once again, I'm a responsible adult. If I go to a farmer and he butchered a cow himself, I know well that he did that himself. I don't need the government to say, oh, well, there might be a risk. No, I know that there might be a risk because he's not at some plant in Sioux Falls that did it. But if I can help that guy out and then I can get a good deal on beef or pork, whatever it is, then why can't we go through that? So with South Dakota, we have such a low unemployment rate before COVID that we're looking for like more people to come in, and we want people to move here because there's a lot of businesses that are looking for good qualified employees, and just keep bringing the businesses, bring the people here. Yeah, the winters suck, but you get used to it after about 30 years. I shouldn't say that. You never get used to it. I'm still not used to it, but yeah. So, I mean, you just got to get little regulations, little permits and all this stuff away from it. And you open up a whole batch of jobs and, reasons that South Dakota could be one of the greatest states. And we're always looked over, it seems like, up until recently.
No, I hear. How about education? How are the schools? Is there a statewide school funding formula? And is that something you'd seek to be involved in as an elected legislator? As you mentioned, education is so important to your family.
That's one of the things I'm still competing for my wife's vote because she's a teacher, so I still haven't earned hers yet. Or I don't know if she's going to vote for me out of pity or what, but I do have to give credit to my opponent because back in like 2016 when he was a state representative, he did push to make sure that the teachers made a fair competitive wage. And this is where like a lot of libertarians might not agree with me is that about public education. And I believe that public education is extremely important. Is what I want to push more for is that independent schools can make their own decisions, especially in situations like where COVID is happening, where they can make their decisions on how they want to run their schools, how they want to handle situations like this without facing the threat of losing government funding. Because in South Dakota, we have so many small towns that, like, for example, my wife teaches in Florence, South Dakota, which is population about 300. And the local government there, the local population there wouldn't be able to fund the school completely by themselves. So they do have government assistance, or they do have state assistance. But once again, we're having these situations where bigger government's coming in and threatening these schools to say, like, if you shut down or if you decide not to go to school this year, then you're losing this funding. So it's a threat, really, where they shouldn't have to worry about that and losing their funding. So to me, one of the things I'd like to focus on, and I couldn't tell you what my game plan right this second is, but I'd like it to where individual schools can be more independent of, or that local schools can be more independent of their decision-making without facing that threat, and also look for options on how to fund them better, maybe locally, without having to punish the local population either by heavier taxes. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I would like to see happen is if we can pass, we have recreational and medical marijuana on the ballot this year, is use like a very small tax on that, use that to fund our schools. Because one of the things that, and this probably happens in every state, is that, yeah, you set up a budget for education, But then when something else happens, they're like, well, we're going to borrow from that education fund. And all of a sudden now we have teachers that are leaving for other states, leaving for jobs to go work at like Walmart because they can make more money there. You know, it wasn't up until probably, like I said, 4 years ago that my wife made a like a livable, somewhat livable wage. But for a lot of teachers that might not have, husbands or wives or live on their own, a teacher's wage isn't going to get you very far. So I'm not saying that we need to pay them millions of dollars or anything like that, but get them to what they deserve. I mean, they are taking care of our kids. They're helping out our communities. Yeah, I'm biased because my wife is a teacher and I love her very much, but at the same time, my kids go to public school, and I just want them to be able to have more of a voice in their district, their schools, without facing any threats.
Mm-hmm. You know, we've talked about the meat packing industry. We've alluded to that. Clearly, that has a larger than life presence in your state. Mm-hmm. Smithfield Farm, I believe, is one of the largest employers in your state. Early on, there was a significant round of closures, and so that's the first step is obviously looking at the economic impact of that. But meat packing is an industry that has traditionally employed a significant immigrant population. Is that still the case in South Dakota? And what is the state's overall attitude, if you will, given the agricultural presence at large in the state towards immigrants?
I think you're always going to have that population of people that believe that immigrants are causing all sorts of problems. But I know we did have a good portion anyways that was working in these meatpacking industries that, but at the same time, if they weren't there, then the meatpacking industry would have had problems anyways. So once again, South Dakota has a low unemployment rate. So we have people that want to start businesses. They need employees. At this point, it's not about, where these people come from. It's just a matter of filling these jobs. And it's my personal belief that I don't feel like South Dakota has been, biased about that they just want to find good employees. And if you get beat out by someone that came here from Mexico, Canada, wherever, I don't want to say it's your own fault, but maybe they have a better credential. It's, we still, pay good wages at these places. And to me, it's not about that. It's about just being able to, like I said, just fill these jobs up, because in South Dakota, we need the people.
Is the state's attitude? I know there were some controversial ICE raids in South Dakota. Is the
sorry, she thought that my interview was over, and
no worries.
That's Adrian.
Invite the family in. Come on. But so there was controversy with regards to ICE raids and things like that throughout the Midwest meatpacking industry. Does the state? How does Governor Nome and the state look at immigrant population? Is there a détente there? Is there a happy, peaceful coexistence? Are you aware? Do they cooperate aggressively with the federal government and with ICE to try and target these folks? What's the general atmosphere?
It hasn't, from what I've seen, it hasn't been a big issue in South Dakota. I know right across, probably an hour away from me in Minnesota, it has been an issue. They've came down on it pretty hard. But either we have a low illegal immigration or illegal immigrant population here, or we have people that are coming up that are legal that are taking these. But it hasn't been, as far as I've seen, people that have been raided and shut down. Very few, very rarely, if that's the case. And at that point, it's one of those things where you gotta focus on the employer as opposed to these people, because you always have those people that, like I said, want to focus on like, oh, these immigrants are coming and stealing our jobs, but they don't want to hold the employer liable for, knowingly employing a bunch of illegal immigrants. But like I said, it hasn't been as big of an issue because we have such a large demand for that. So and it's not the most glamorous job to be at meatpacking plants. I mean, those guys have, all my respect that I can give them, because it's not a job I feel like I could do. So to me, I don't think in South Dakota it's been an issue. And if it turns into it's more of a social issue where someone might have a problem with it without knowing the economics behind it.
Absolutely. We've run a little long here. As we like to say in the show, engage in shameless self-promotion. Where can folks find you on the web? How can they contribute? And we all need, as candidates, we all need volunteers. By the way, I just want to put out there, there's a population of libertarians who, through the miracle IP addresses and telephony and the web, are available to and willing to and looking forward to volunteer opportunities with down ballot candidates remotely. So how can folks help you out?
If they just want to go to my website, which I'm still working on, getting a few things up, but it has my donate button there at votejewell.com. Also on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jewell for Senate. That's mainly where I've been doing a lot of my outreach and just talking with people. And like I said, through those, you'll find my, you can donate either via the donor box program or PayPal. And just all that helps. Like I said, here pretty soon, it's going to be yard sign season. It's going to be flyer season. It's time to go, because South Dakota has a super early voting date. So really people can start voting September, somewhere around the 20th. So, to me, the next few weeks are going to be pretty important to get my name out to a lot of the people that plan on start voting early. But if you can donate or help out at all, go through those things and just follow me on Facebook. And that's really all I can ask for from you guys.
Very good. Adam Jewell, he is running for the South Dakota State Senate District 5, the big District 5. Adam, hold on. We'll get back to you at the very end of the show. But thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your campaign effort. We're grateful that you're willing to extend yourself. We always say here on the show that one of the highest acts of patriotism in this country is the willingness to run for public office, the personal sacrifice, the financial sacrifice that takes place, taking time away from your family, and particularly as a libertarian, working out there to advocate for the libertarian philosophy as a candidate. You're sort of a first or second generation preacher, if you will, for the movement. You're routinely interfacing with people who might not be that familiar with us. So we are, as a nation, as a philosophy and a movement and a party, we're grateful for your efforts. So thanks for joining us. Folks, we are, of course, an hour with the candidates, or Candidates Corner, depending on who you're speaking to at a moment. Joining us next, we're going to bring live on Joshua Flynn. He is a Illinois State Representative District Candidate 78. Did I get that right, Joshua?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I can't think of two, let's just say, radically different constituencies, if you will, in terms of economy, in terms of population density, in terms of the different challenges when facing, when you compare, say, a South Dakota State Senate District versus, well, in your case, you are in the heart of Chicago, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. West side of Chicago.
Now, compare and contrast that for a moment. That's not Chicagoland. Can you explain to folks who are not from the greater Chicago area, who may not have seen or been a visitor to Lower Wacker Drive via the courtesy of the Blues Brothers movie, but tell us about the difference between Chicagoland and the heart of Chicago.
Well, Chicagoland is basically, well, people from the west side or south side or even the north side of Chicago would consider it basically the surrounding suburban area. Chicago, you live in Chicago, the heart of Chicago itself, the city. When I say Chicagoland, sometimes they try to mix it in with Chicago and the western, northern, and southern suburbs, but it's a big difference. It's a big difference living in both places.
So Chicago is largely, along with, say, New York City, Manhattan, the boroughs, and Los Angeles, to be considered to be amongst the most challenged urban centers in the nation. And clearly, as we speak, Chicago is facing just some devastating events on a routine basis. Now, the problem is that the frustration from a lot of the country is that in all three cities, we've seen generationally, these go on and on and on. I just, from my own perspective, I remember Mayor Jane Byrne, and I think she was the first mayor elected possibly after, shall we say, a family, let's just say a corporate family being in charge of the city of Chicago. And there was the story of her actually spending nights in the Cabrini Green, which I believe is now long since gone, housing development and public housing development, and then was considered a brave and rather unique approach to getting an understanding of the public housing crisis that has really continues to envelope the entire country. Chicago faces so much violence. Is there one underlying reason? Can you give us a little snapshot of why, after years of the Daley administration, why we're still in the year 2020, still facing these just terrible situations?
Well, it's basically a systemic system that was basically designed for this. So with so much going on with the high taxes in the state of Illinois, especially here in Chicago, with the corrupt politicians controlling funding through the city and the state of Illinois, keeping it out of the low and middle class income families, households like the west side and the south side of Chicago, it damaged a lot of homes coming up. So a lot of parents didn't have 2-parent households for one thing, which I was a blessing to have to grow up in, was a 2-parent household. Mm-hmm. We lacked that a lot on the west and south side of Chicago. So that's one big key thing that happened there. Then job loss. Jobs and factories started moving out of the city into the suburbs and further than out of the state itself. And job loss, the father's not in the household, it's going to be a destructive home. Like I said, I was blessed to have my father at home with me to keep me out of the streets, keep me away from violent crimes. But once we are able to go back to the traditional household of a 2-parent household, you'll see a lot of changes within those communities, like the west and south sides of Chicago. Like, I'm from Austin community. Austin community is the largest African American community in the city of Chicago. So we do have a high crime rate, but we do lack, we lack employment, we lack businesses here, we lack the education system that's needed here in our community. So that's what the reason why we're right now here in Illinois, especially here in Chicago.
Your mayor has attracted a great deal of controversy, in some part because of her interaction with President Trump. In other cases, she is very liberal. It's unfair, almost a sense, to brand or to hand her the weight of all these issues. She's still a relatively new mayor, but is there any positivity coming from anywhere in terms of either whether it's local Chicago government or at the state level in terms of dealing with the problems in Chicago? Is there any sunny? Is there a sunny side of the street at all?
Yes, I do. I see it coming. Under this administration, as soon as she got into office, she was hit the first year. She had to deal with teacher strike with the CTU. The next thing, once she got through the teacher strike, she had to deal with firing her superintendent of police. Then 2020 comes, and then COVID hits. During the COVID, which is something very huge, nobody was prepared for that whatsoever. And then getting hit again with the looting. So it was like she was constantly running to set out fires every time you turn around. She didn't get a breather whatsoever. So you can't say all of it's on her, but it's work in progress to see some change. Hopefully in the light of things coming sooner, hopefully things will change. But with elections coming up right now and this year, I see a brighter side coming in 2021. I see a lot of change coming to the state of Illinois in 2021. So yes.
Well, that's great to hear, because also Illinois is often included, by the way, with the state that I live in, Rhode Island, is one of the first rounds of states that potentially could face some type of economic constitutional crisis with the looming threat of, if you will, a statewide bankruptcy, by the way, which is not really permitted, I believe, under the Constitution. What as a representative of your district, what are the changes that you would like to see happen in order to, speed up this turnaround? What in your mind has to happen? What steps would you like to see happen?
Well, I like to see more constituent-based businesses in our communities. especially the low-income communities, where they can build and make stronger economies within local economies. Just like in Austin. Austin is the only community in my district that's in Chicago. And I believe if we build that economy by, giving out small business loans to new business owners, small business owners that's trying to create new businesses there, we can utilize the interest rates on those loans to pay down the pension debt that we have here in Illinois, along with the businesses and the pension debt, paying down the pension debt itself, also creating more education opportunities for kids here in these communities. They need more options. Let it be, with the traditional route of education or public charter or even private school opportunities. That's why I'm a big advocate for charter schools, and I'm an advocate also for scholarship programs for private schools, so the parents can have another option outside of the traditional one if they don't agree with the one they have at hand. And also, I've always say this, that I believe that a working community and kids in school make for safer streets in our community. That's why I'm also an advocate for pushing for police reform and bringing in better trained officers through our communities, not just here in Chicago, but across the state of Illinois, and looking forward to things across the country. Yes.
Let's look at charter schools and private schools, if you will, particularly the ones that might be faith-based and might be willing to make an investment in some of the tougher communities. And by the way, Providence, where I live, and Boston, just north of here, are not exempt or protected from the plague of these same issues. So this is not to seem like we're beating up on Chicago, but merely because of the size of the city and the death rate. It has become, sadly, the poster child for municipal failure. So is the Catholic Church weighing in? What type of financing or funding or support is given to charter schools in the greater Chicago area?
Well, with charter schools, they have funding that comes through a lot of donations. That's where the funding comes through for them there. As far as the private schools, are paid. They have a scholarship program through Empower Illinois, also recognized as One Chance Illinois, and a couple other organizations too. Link Unlimited is an organization for African American students that's trying to their parents are trying to get them into private schools. I know a lot of kids that was involved with that organization, and also it's not just paying for the education itself. It comes with mentorship throughout their high school process and on through their college system as well. That's why also with the charter schools, the same thing. My daughter, she attends Kill Create here on the west side of Chicago, and they have the same almost like mentorship once they graduate from 8th grade all the way through high school and through college. They help them out, to make sure they push it along and have that support system that a lot of the traditional schools a lot of times don't offer unless people pick up, get behind kids and push them and have that support there. So yes.
So where do those organizations, like for example, the one that your daughter's involved in, where do they find funding? Are they government based or are they private contributions?
Those are private contributions, yes.
And isn't that the beauty of the libertarian movement? If libertarians step up and actually engage in communities that are in trouble, that are under so much fire, and engage in volunteering, engage in fundraising, you take out the government component of it, and folks are then able to tend to these children's needs. Do a lot of these efforts reach into 12th grade, or is it typically at the primary school?
I hear you say that again.
Do they reach up into the 12th grade? Do they reach up into high school?
Yes. Excellent.
So where does the job growth come from? You talked briefly, and this is a subject I'd love to explore. As a history buff, I've always been in favor of, let's just say, I'll call it an economic nationalism, if you will, where groups in municipalities and cities that are under fire look to themselves to build up an economy. And by doing so, they are supportive, if you will, of their own business community, in a sense, take pride in the fact that they each use each other. There's a dependency there, if you will, but at the same time, the spirit of that can lift up a community. How difficult is it in the city of Chicago to open a small business?
Very difficult. Very difficult. with the license issues, the time to get the businesses, with the property taxes so high, the cost of getting a smaller leasing spot is very expensive. And that's the risk a lot of new business owners don't want to take. You know, it's chances they can start up right away, but because of the cost of the property taxes here and the licensing issues they got to go through, and the wait times, it slows them down. They have to jump through loops, you know, just to basically get a business started if they want to have a storefront business here.
Wow. And rents are high. So what would you propose? You know, let's just say you're elected. And yes. I want to talk about the mechanics of your election as well. But let's just say you're elected and you're given an opportunity. What are some of the businesses that could have potential in your district within Chicago that aren't realized, particularly within communities that might highlight newly arrived Americans? What do you want to focus on as a representative?
Like I said, I want to focus more on the loans, the small business loans. The biggest thing is having capital, being able to have the capital to get your business started. There's a lot of kids now I'm listening to now that's 19, 20 years old, ready to start businesses, but having a hard time because the capital is not there. So like I said before, with the potential of having those business loans, small business loans with low interest rates, it benefits a couple of things. It benefits the new business owner, and it also benefits the state by paying down our debts that we do have here. Mm-hmm. So that'd be the first thing to tackle, is to get those loans out to the small business owners in those communities. Like I always say, constituent-based businesses, businesses owned by people that's there, so they can hire people from the community to work there. So people don't have to drive hours away from home just to work. They can work just down the street from their house.
Is there any organizations that are available to mentor these young people, particularly if they've had a challenge in the high school level or in the early college level?
You do have some organizations. AAA BNA is an organization in our area. The African American Business Networking Association is in our community as well. At Northwest Austin Council, Steve Robinson does some things there as well to help out and mentor new small business owner that wants to get started in the process, especially for younger youth that's trying to get started with businesses here. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. How important is it? And this is one of the challenges I routinely put to the libertarian world. How important would it be, how empowering would it be to get libertarians involved in just those communities?
How important? Very important. That's what the lack of the other parties outside the Democratic Party is putting a foothold in our communities. Just showing up, speaking, and listening to the community itself. That's how I came into the party itself, because they came close to my community, which was Forest Park, and we broke bread. We was able to sit down and talk and realize that we have a lot of things in common, especially in politics, especially in economics, on how we should go about. And I believe that just sitting down, coming to the community, listening to the ministers, the leadership, and just every day, just coming through door knocking. That's small ways of doing those things, and you'll get understand that we are all just pretty much alike. There's not too much separation between a lot of people. They call themselves liberals, but a lot of times they're more conservative than what they think they are.
Right. So would it be fair then to say that we need to invite Illinois libertarians to sort of rise up and create these mentorships, because it gives you the opportunity to present a libertarian message, but in a supportive way, in a way that's saying, okay, we're going to help you grow as a person and grow as a business. And I ask that because I also want to get a sense of how you're reaching out to your community. In terms of your, with COVID in place, we're blocked from a lot of the in-person relationships that could help so much as a grassroots politician like yourself. So how are you reaching out to the community at the same time?
Well, I haven't stopped. Doing door-to-door knocking.
Really?
That's how I was able to get on the ballot, because here in Illinois, we have a signature requirement that I had to go through. And I was still door-to-door knocking. Some would answer, some wouldn't. But I had more than enough to answer my doors during the petition period. I got over 1,300 signatures during that time, actually. So,
wow.
A lot of people will still answer their doors, just because of COVID going on. I did have a mask on. I did have hand sanitizer with me, and I did wear gloves during that time. A lot of times people didn't want to use my pen, so they brought their own pen to the door. I was fine with that. But between Chicago all the way out to Franklin Park, yeah, a lot of people did answer their doors for me. Yeah, I do lit drop 3 times a week. So people are there, they answer their door, they come out, speak with me, talk with me, ask me if I need water as well. So yeah, just because it's COVID, a lot of people are responding because they want to see something different. They are hungry for something new and different.
And when you speak with folks like that, because that's, by the way, that's a fantastic effort. Congratulations on that. I mean, that's sheer human will overcoming a lot of challenges when you can bring to the table that type of effort. But when you speak to people outside of the obvious conversations about COVID, what are people in your district yearning for?
A new face with new ideas. Somebody with some new ideas coming through. When I talk about my campaign and everything, and then I like to listen. I do more listening a lot of times because sometimes they don't agree with what your policies takes are or what your platform is like. So I start listening to people a lot more because, like my dad said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Do more listening than talking, and it works. It works in my favor a lot of times that way. But people are yearning for, especially in the suburban area. Let's talk about that for a second. They want to see lower property taxes. That's one of the biggest things. Property taxes, especially in Oak Park, are very high compared to Chicago or even Lighton Township, which is the northern west part of my district. Another thing is more jobs. That's more of like Chicago itself, and as well as Lighton too. More jobs in the area, more jobs in the community to help the small economies. So that's what the big urge and need is for. And then the change with, like in Chicago, the change with the police department on de-escalation is an issue that came up a lot of times when I was canvassing here in Chicago. And pretty much that's about the round of things. There's other issues too, but those are the big key things that people was brought up a lot during my canvassing period.
Let's talk about the war on drugs, policing.
Sure.
Whenever we have particularly in the last several weeks, whenever we have a candidate on who's from an urban area, it's the elephant in the room, as it were. No matter how people try to avoid it, it is unavoidable at this moment. When you see a city like Kenosha, Wisconsin, which I would imagine isn't that terribly far from you, in literally flames, what is the relationship like in your community, in your district, with the Chicago PD?
Well, in Chicago, that's where the issues are at, mostly when it comes to police, really is in Chicago. So I'm gonna speak on that one. In Chicago, the communication is not there. So right now, I'm a part of an organization called the New Policing Initiative out of NYU, where my job is to basically build those bridges between the community and the police department, because of the divide is so much there. Where pretty much, like my mentor said, the biggest thing is trust, and the police doesn't trust the community don't trust the police. Prime example, Kenosha. The community do not trust the police because of issues like that. There was no reason at all. I was talking with an officer from my district just the other day about this, retired officer actually, and he was like, "There's no way he should have been taken down. If there was a fear for the officer's life or anyone's life around that person, they should have been taken down before he got to the car door." But back to what I was saying, the issue is trust. So we have to build that bridge of trust between the two communities, which is law enforcement and the community. Especially here, the African American community and the brown community here in Chicago and across the country, but especially here because we have that issue been going on for years. So that's what I come to work with the community to be that voice for them.
There's a lot of folks from suburban America who would purport to speak for people who live in what I'll call the urban core, and I won't be one of them, except to say that in my own personal opinion, and I want you to challenge me on this if you don't agree. It's okay. Sure. A great deal of conversations come up about defunding the police versus, say, ending the police. I'm a libertarian who, quite frankly, believes in, as we know it, ending the police. I'm firmly a believer that while we need law enforcement, that the way law enforcement comports itself, the issues that they challenge or choose not to challenge, that direction should be taken from the community, not some top-down hierarchy, very often in a capital city hundreds of miles away, or in an out-of-touch police bureaucracy that, quite frankly, may be, in many cases, inadvertently responsible for a lot of the ill will that exists today, particularly when you have these heavily militarized police departments like you see in big cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. What's your attitude on that? I mean, you could tell me I'm full of horsebucky if you want. But what are your thoughts?
Actually, I don't agree with defunding the police. Now, demilitarize the police, I believe in, yeah, but not defund it. Let me explain why. We can switch the way that we do funding, though. As far as we can take the funding out of so-called putting so much into militarizing the police into more training, better training efforts for our officers. Starting in the academy, I think we need to do more ride-alongs. I think that they need to have some culture shocks going on in the academy before they get to the streets. And we won't have situations like what happened in Kenosha. We won't have situations what happened here in Chicago with Laquan McDonald. Culture shocks, it will root out, good officers, to keep the good officers and get rid of the ones, the bad officers that's going to become officers, whatever. I got that from the Police Academy movie. If we do more of that, you'll figure out that, you'll lose a lot of officers on the way. That's true. But you'll make sure that it'll be a lot more safety on the streets. It's a training process that needs to happen. Also, I believe that with a lot of mental health going on in different communities, I think we need more officers that are equipped to handle those issues as well. A lot of officers are not equipped to handle a lot of mental cases, and they're so quick to fire their weapon. That needs to change as well. The de-escalation tactics have to be provided and changed on how they do things. It's training. I'm being all honest with you. It's training and rooting out the people before we get to the streets. That's why I say the ride-alongs has to start, and it has to start now. Yes.
As someone who lives in a major city, do you believe that cities where they have things like a policeman's bill of rights or qualified immunity, do you think those need to be eliminated?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And, one of the ideas that's come up largely, I think, from the libertarian movement, in terms of the great conversation that's being held everywhere, is the notion of liability insurance for police. In your opinion, as someone, and again, congratulations for proactively engaging with an organization that's having a real world discussion about, as opposed to what happens on Facebook or in suburban communities like the one I live in. So congratulations for that. Should police be mandated to have liability insurance so that, in fact, insurance companies, rather than waiting for a police board or a community board, the insurance companies will effectively, like a bad driver, root out the system?
Well, it's funny you say that. See, I'm in the insurance business. That's my field. That's my background.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. Well, one thing is it saves money on the taxpayers by going that route. It saves a lot of money. The thing about it is, I know a lot of taxpayers are worried about it. Well, who's going to pay for the insurance policy itself? And that's where the problem will come into a fight with the unions and the city hall is who's going to pay for it. The biggest issue is I believe that the officers, it should be paid for because that's their insurance policy themselves. It's a protection plan for themselves, but it also protects the city of Chicago. Like a city like Chicago, Chicago decided on doing something like that. Right now, what was it, $5.5 million that they paid out for Laquan McDonald's shooting? I mean, that's $5.5 million that have been saved from taxpayers paying that fee out, and we get hit with the insurance company, and we hit with the officer, and possibly they also would have lost their license. I know another issue they brought up with that is not just having an insurance policy, but actually giving the officer a license like a doctor has, along with that insurance policy. So I believe it can work. It can work out very well. It wouldn't be an expensive policy. I know that for a fact. So it wouldn't be a big hit on the officer if they had to pay out of pocket for it. But it'll keep the city out of more debt that we're already in because of those issues that come awry.
And if you think about it, many nurses have to pay for their insurance policy. Doctors certainly have to pay for their insurance policy. And not every doctor is making $250,000 a year. There's a lot of doctors who are very early. They call it malpractice insurance. We could call it that for the police as well, because it's effectively the same issue. And at a moment when a doctor or a nurse becomes uninsurable, well, they become unemployable, as you well know. I'm grateful for that input. I believe firmly that someone like yourself with this sort of multifaceted experience should be taking a large role in the libertarian community nationally, because you represent so many different experiences at one time. Someone who is proactively engaged in the community, someone who's got industry expertise in a salient issue, at the same time someone who's running for public office, and at the same time someone who's grown up in a community and has seen so many changes over a lifetime. So I hope this isn't the last time we hear from you on these issues. You have a voice, and it needs to be heard regardless of the outcome of this election. So congratulations for that, and congratulations for your efforts, because as I told our other guests tonight, running for political office, as you've seen firsthand, is a tremendous extension of your own efforts at a time when employment is difficult for people, regardless of profession, at a time when, families demand so much support because of all these exigent challenges. So we're grateful for your support. We've gone over tonight, and I apologize for that, but I don't want to limit your time in engaging in what we lovingly refer to as shameless self-promotion. So please tell folks how they can find you.
Well, at my website here at josh4staterep.com. Also, I am on Twitter at josh4staterep, all spelled out, no numbers. I'm on Instagram with the same spelling, JOSHFORSTATEREP, and I'm on Facebook as well at josh4staterep.com. Yes.
Mr. Fishman, could we briefly bring on both of our guests at the same time so we can? I don't know that we have time to exchange ideas, but I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to say goodbye. One more time with feeling briefly, Mr. Jewell, if you could tell folks how to find you, and Mr. Flynn, if you could give folks one more time how to find you. Adam, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you guys can just go to www.votejewel.com or just hit up my Facebook page at Jewel for Senate.
Excellent. And one more time, Mr. Flynn.
Yes, at josh4staterep, JOSH, josh4staterep.com. All my social media is on my website as well. So,
all right. Well, again, in saying goodnight to the libertarian body politic, if you will, folks, take great pleasure, take great courage, take great joy, if you will, when you meet candidates like as we have both tonight and over the last, it's been 3 or 4 months. I think we've been doing this, maybe even a little bit longer, knowing that these individuals are going into their community and aggressively promoting, both through their own histories, their own lives, and their own hard work, a libertarian philosophy into parts of the country for which this may be literally that breath of fresh air. So I want to congratulate both of you for joining us tonight and for the tenor of your campaigns. I want to make a brief note that following this show in a few minutes, Jim Turney is of the Jorgensen campaign is going to be joining us on Campaign Update. You can watch that live on facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, where every week we have a half hour with various members of the campaign. But I also want to take the time to note that if you'd like to join us on the air, we've got commitments for the next couple of weeks, but we've got ample time before the November 3rd election. We've got a few folks who are facing special elections that are kind of jumping the line because we want to get them in before the end of September. But reach out to us at anhourwiththecandidates@gmail.com. You can reach out to Dan Fishman, the executive director of the Libertarian Party. And of course, I'm everywhere on Facebook, both at the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island, the Joe Jorgensen campaign, and just on the Facebook in general. Folks, thank you very much for joining us. You've been listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, executive producer. We'll see you next Friday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, with 2 more great down ballot candidates.